It started off like any other day. My parents were out of town for the weekend, so I invited Aaron over to hang out. Typical teenage stuff, playing on the Switch, sneaking a few of Dad's Heinekens, smoking a bit. Pretty much everything we weren't supposed to be doing. Aaron was everything I wasn't. Athletic, popular, the life of the party, and actually invited to the party. He was at least 6 inches taller than me, hit the gym religiously, and it showed, and rocked shoulder-length blonde hair that somehow always looked perfect. If you're picturing Thor or Adonis, you're not far off. We met freshman year when we were assigned to a group project together. I assumed he'd be the typical jock, lazy, expecting me to do all the work while he coasted along, too busy with football practice to bother. But Aaron surprised me. Sure, he didn't have a clue what he was doing at first, but he showed up to every group meeting, asked thoughtful questions, and pulled his weight. He admitted when he didn't understand something, and asked me to explain it without a hint of ego. I'd expected to hate him. By the end of the project, I found myself liking him instead. My real shock came at the end of the year, when Aaron texted me to his house for a pool party. I thought he'd sent it to the wrong number and told him so. He just sent back a laughing emoji, saying he hoped not, and that he wanted all of his friends there. I showed up, fully expecting to be the butt of some elaborate prank. Instead, Aaron greeted me at the door like a long-lost brother, threw an arm around me, and announced to everyone there that Miles made it. People I didn't even know smiled and greeted me like we were old friends. It felt surreal, like I was a Make-A-Wish kid whose only wish was to be acknowledged. Aaron was the real deal. From that day on, he became my best friend. Sure, if you looked at us, we couldn't have been more different. But when it came down to it, there wasn't anyone else I'd rather spend a lazy Saturday with. As the sun dipped below the horizon, my phone buzzed with a text from Colin. Yo, Sean stashed a bottle of Tito's in the breakage box at Poppy's. You down to chill later? Sean worked at Poppy's Liquors. Out back, they kept a breakage box for damaged bottles, broken seals, or anything unsellable. Every now and then, when he was feeling particularly daring, Sean would stash a perfectly good bottle in the box, mark it as damaged in inventory, leave the box unlocked, and gamble both his job and his freedom just to get drunk with his idiot friends. Lucky for me, or unlucky, depending on how you looked at it, I was one of those idiots. I texted back, hanging with Aaron at my place. Parents are gone this weekend, so if you all want to crash here, it's cool. Looking up from my phone, I asked Aaron, Sean and Colin snagged a bottle of Tito's from Poppy's. You cool if they bring it over to share? A huge grin spread across Aaron's face. Drunk Mario Kart? You know I'm down. Right on cue, my phone buzzed again. Colin's reply lit up the screen. Bet. Sean's off at 6. We'll head over after. Colin and I had been friends since 5th grade. We'd known of each other before that, but we never really talked until then. Tall and lanky, with perpetually greasy, jet black hair, Colin was your quintessential geek. While the rest of us had to save up to buy computers, Colin built his from scratch. On D&D nights, he didn't just show up as the DM. He arrived in full costume and character, spinning lore so immersive, it felt like we'd been transported straight out of his parents' basement into another world. I've always envied his imagination and creativity. When things got tough, finals, college applications, or someone going through a rough patch, Colin would call for a game session, and within minutes, we'd be a million miles away from our problems. We were no longer stressed out teens, we were adventurers. We retrieved lost artifacts, slew dragons, and restored rightful heirs to their thrones. By the time the light came back on, and we were once again at Collins's parents' card table, next to the rack of winter coats, with the faint hiss of the boiler in the background, things never seemed quite as dire. After all, what's a term paper compared to taking on a Lich King? I grinned at Aaron and gave him a thumbs up. We're good to go. Hope you saved room. Aaron glanced at the empty 6-pack of Heineken we'd polished off earlier and smirked. I've always got room for Tito's. Then, as if on cue, his stomach growled. But maybe we order some pizza first, so we're not totally wasted by the time the rest of the crew shows up. I glanced at my watch. 5:45. If I ordered now, the pizza would show up right when Colin and Sean did. I picked up the phone to order pizza when Aaron stopped me. Order for 5 instead of 4, he said casually. There's only 4 of us, dude. I laughed. Unless you've got the munchies from earlier and just don't want to admit it. Aaron smirked. You should invite Val over. The words made my stomach drop. No way! I shook my head quickly. There's no way she'd want to hang out with us. She'd think it's weird. She's not hanging out with us, Aaron said, jabbing a finger at my chest. She's hanging out with you. You've been into her forever, and you've done absolutely nothing about it. Tonight's the night, man. I felt my face flush. No, I stammered. It's not the right time. Aaron groaned, throwing his head back. Dude, it's never going to be the right time, Miles. Worst case, she says no. Best case, she says yes. Great case, she comes over, eats some pizza, has a drink, and you finally get to spend time with her. What's the harm? I can't do it, I muttered. my hands shaking. I just... Before I could finish, Aaron grabbed the phone from my hands, his fingers flying across the screen. "There," he declared, tossing the phone back at me with a triumphant grin. "Now you don't have to." I stared at the message he'd sent. "Hey, if you don't have plans tonight, I'm having people over for pizza, Mario Kart, and drinks. Should be a great time." My heart raced as I looked up at Aaron. "Are you kidding me right now?" "You're welcome," he said with a wink, leaning back on the couch like he'd just solved all my life's problems. I felt my heart pounding in my throat, my hands trembling like I'd just been caught committing a crime. Okay, maybe that's a little dramatic. Let me clarify. Valerie wasn't the most popular girl in school. She wasn't a cheerleader or some untouchable goddess who didn't know I existed. She was, for lack of a better word, average. Smart, tall, with an average build, short, strawberry blonde hair, and glasses. She usually wore jeans and sweaters to school. Comfortable, practical. Val was a choir kid who never went out for solos, a drama kid who only auditioned for background roles, and a club member who never even thought about running for office. She seemed perfectly content living in the background of everyone else's life. If there were an award for Best Supporting Character in Life, Val would have won it, graciously accepted it, and gone right back to helping someone else shine. And that's exactly how I would have always seen her. Just a familiar face in the crowd, if it hadn't been for the sophomore year musical. I signed up for the tech crew, not because I cared about the show, but because it involved power tools and paint. And honestly, it sounded more fun than sitting at home. The performers were just moving scenery to me until dress rehearsal. There was this one big number where they all did these synchronized spins across the stage. Everyone else was focused on Carla Abrams, the lead. Not me. My eyes locked on Val. The way she moved, graceful and effortless, with a smile so pure it lit up the whole auditorium. The way the stage lights played on her face. In that moment, she wasn't a background player. In my mind, Val was the star. That night, I begged the stage manager to rig the cast gift exchange so I could draw her name. During one of the performances, I snapped a photo of her mid-spin, beaming, radiant. I framed it and gave it to her at the cast party. When she opened it, she cried. I mean cried. There she was, as I saw her, front and center, the star of the show, her joy immortalized. After some detective work, she found me after the party, thanking me over and over. She insisted on getting my number. I thought that might be the start of something. But since then, our relationship had been limited to holiday and birthday texts, and the occasional halfway hello. Okay, maybe my feelings are dramatic, but for me, they're real. I stared at my phone. No response. Worst case scenario. Oh well. Give it time, Aaron said, leaning back with a knowing grin. It took you 2 years to say anything more than Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. Give her a second to adjust to this dynamic. I sighed and picked up the phone to order the pizza. As the line rang, Aaron held up his hand and mouthed the word 5. Yeah, can I get 3 pizzas for delivery? 1 plain, 1 with peppers, onions, and black olives, and 1 with pepperoni and extra cheese. 274 Elmdale Crescent. Great, thanks. I hung up the phone with a relieved sigh. As per the young lady at Nana Emilia's, who sounded like she hates her job, our pizzas will be here in 40 minutes. I informed Aaron. Perfect timing, Aaron said with a grin, his excitement building. As I slid my phone back into my pocket, it buzzed. I pulled it out again, my heart skipping a beat when I saw Val's name. Her message read, "Sure, that sounds like fun. Let me just shower and I'll head over." My chest felt like it might explode. Aaron clapped me on the back with a triumphant laugh. You see? If you never ask, you'll never know. This party just got way better. 43 minutes later, the pizza arrived, followed almost immediately by Sean and Colin. You might be wondering why I haven't said much about Sean yet. That's because, honestly, Sean is the reason the events of this night unfolded the way they did. Without him, none of it would have happened. Every town has a Sean. Ours was what people called a super senior. We were all waiting to see if he'd become a super duper senior next year. Sean didn't care much for grades, never gave a second thought to what adults thought of him, and seemed incapable of thinking more than a few hours ahead. He loved living in the moment, chasing experiences like some people chase popularity. Sean was a constant in our lives, though I can't really remember how I started hanging out with him. He was just there, like a cool older brother who somehow adopted us all. He was the first to get his license, the first to own a car, the first to snag a fake ID, and he'd always made sure to take us along for the ride. If I had to sum up Sean in one word, it'd be weird. Not in a bad way, mind you. Sean's weirdness was the kind that came from living life exactly how we wanted, without a single thought given to what anyone else considered normal. Once, Sean drove us 3 hours into the mountains to find a geocache. At the time, I didn't even know what geocaching was. Sean explained it as a global treasure hunt, with hidden containers waiting to be discovered all over the world. You could be standing 4 feet from one and never know it," he said, which I'll admit was a little mind-blowing. Sean didn't care much for the easy ones. He was drawn to the caches that other people stashed, deep in forests, perched on mountaintops, submerged in swamps, or tucked away in forgotten cemeteries. Each cache would hold trinkets of little value, plus a logbook to sign for bragging rights. Some even had puzzles to solve before you could unlock them. For most people, the thrill came from the discovery or the chase. And sure, Sean loved being the first to find a cache, but I think what he enjoyed the most was sharing the experience. Bringing others into his weird little corner of the world. That was Sean's real treasure. That day, after the long drive, he led us up an old, overgrown trail to the summit of a mountain overlooking a breathtaking valley. It was the kind of view you'd never forget. But Sean wasn't done. He dropped 8 feet down a cliff face onto a narrow ledge, crawled into a crevice, and emerged triumphantly with an ammo case in his hands, like he'd just discovered the Ark of the Covenant. Does that sound terrifying? It was. But to Sean, it was just a Tuesday. Sean had this knack for finding hidden, forgotten places. An old statue buried in the woods. He'd been there. An obscure monument no one cared about. He'd found it. Most people would think of 1,000 excuses not to go. But Sean lived for the adventure. And honestly, I loved it. Every moment with Sean made my world feel bigger. Like I'd been handed the keys to unlock secrets no one else dared to find. So, knowing that about Sean, it probably won't surprise you to learn what one of his other biggest passions was. Colin extended his hand to shake mine, only to pull me into a quick hug. "What's up, bro?" he asked with a grin. "Please tell me you got extra cheese." Aaron gave him a mock look of indignation. "What do you take us for?" he said dramatically. "This is a high-class establishment, my friend." "Speaking of high class," Sean interjected, adopting a ridiculous Boston Brahmin accent, "I come bearing only the finest." With a flourish, he pulled a bottle of Tito's out from under his leather jacket, holding it aloft like it was a prize. Aaron smirked. "Well, I hope you'll be on your best behavior tonight. Don't you know we're being joined by a lady?" My face immediately turned red as Sean and Colin broke into exaggerated oohs and clapping, reveling in my embarrassment. "Val's coming over," I said quickly, trying to maintain some semblance of calm. "Maybe we can just put on a movie and keep it low-key tonight." The guys all started talking at once, clearly amused by my discomfort. I knew they wouldn't actually embarrass me in front of her, but busting my chops was practically their job description as friends. We eventually settled inside, mixing what we optimistically called high-end cocktails. Tito's, Sprite, and a few ice cubes in red solo cups. The atmosphere was light, the kind of easy chaos that felt perfectly normal for a Saturday night. Then the doorbell rang. The room went silent. I stood up, feeling a mix of panic and gratitude that I had just enough liquid courage to keep myself together. Taking a deep breath, I walked to the door, held it for a moment, and opened it. There she was. She stood there in a purple t-shirt, jeans, and sneakers. Casual, like she wasn't trying to impress anyone. She smiled brightly, and before I could say a word, she wrapped her arms around me in a quick hug. "Hey, Miles. Thanks so much for the invite." Her voice was warm, the kind of warmth that made you feel like you mattered just for existing. The embrace was over in a second, but I could still feel it long after she let go. She glanced past me into the kitchen where the other sat on the couch, grinning awkwardly at her, cups in hand. Mario Kart paused on the screen behind them. "Oh, nice," she said quickly, stepping inside. "I want in on the next race. And who's making me a drink?" I was floored. This wasn't like Val at all. I'd been convinced she might be uncomfortable or shy, maybe even reluctant to join us. But here she was, sliding into the group like she'd been doing this for years. After a few rounds of Mario Kart, some time spent passing around good vibes, and a couple more high-end cocktails, I learned a lot about Val. She definitely wasn't straight edge. She could absolutely demolish us in video games. And somehow, she fit into our group so naturally. It was like she'd always been there. "So," Val said, taking a sip from her drink, "what makes you weird? Like, what's something you do that would surprise the rest of the world?" "Who are you asking?" Sean asked, looking back with a grin. "Because weird is relative." "Everyone," Val replied. "I mean, I collect McDonald's Happy Meal toys. I've got every one since I was 6. That's my weird thing." I decided to go next. "Photography," I said. "Well, art in general. When I'm feeling emotional, I channel it into something. Painting, writing, whatever. I guess it helps me make sense of things. Sometimes it even turns out to be good art." Val gave a small smile and an approving nod. I wondered if she was remembering the framed photo from the musical. Aaron raised a hand like he was in class, smiling sheepishly. "Crochet? Like with a mallet? The flamingo thing from Alice in Wonderland?" Colin asked, his face scrunched in mock confusion. "No, not croquet. Crochet," Aaron clarified with a laugh. "My grandma taught me when I was little, and I've kept at it. I've gotten pretty good over the years." Val tilted her head thoughtfully. "So, that handmade blanket your mom donates to the football team's raffle every year?" Aaron grinned and pressed a thumb to his chest. "All me. Not gonna lie, I'm proud of it. but people are more likely to bid if they think my mom made it. If they knew it was a teenage guy, they'd probably assume it was full of dropped stitches and holes. Colin took a slow hit from the joint, held it for a moment, then passed it to Aaron. "A board game," he said casually. Sean leaned forward. "Which one? That's not really weird. You're the king of tabletop games." "It doesn't have a name," Colin said, shrugging. "Not yet, anyways. I'm designing my own. Something anyone can play. Scalable difficulty, immersive gameplay, and an easy escape from reality." Val, just finishing her turn with the joint, blew out a thin stream of smoke and grinned. "That's so awesome. So, like, even if you suck at math or have no imagination, you can still enjoy it and do well." Colin finished with a nod. Sean sat back and crossed his arms. "Nothing I do is weird," he said, his voice firm. "I am who I am, and I won't change that." "We don't mean in a bad way, Sean," I said, hoping to smooth things over. "You're always introducing us to cool stuff. Remember when we spent 3 hours hiking to Gullen's Point just to be the first to grab that geocache? That was epic." "Yeah," Val said, her tone softer now. "Maybe obscure is a better word? Like, what's your passion project?" Sean rubbed his chin for a moment, then said, "Urban exploration." We all stared at Sean, then exchanged confused glances. "Like, checking out random places in the city?" Aaron asked, his brow furrowed. Sean shook his head, laughing. "Nah, bro. I mean exploring abandoned places. Factories, tunnels, old military forts, forgotten mines, decommissioned drainage systems." "When did that start?" I asked, more forcefully than I intended. "We've been exploring for years, and you've never told me about this." "Because it's dangerous, man," Sean shot back, his tone sharp, his expression turned serious as he leaned forward. "You're trespassing in places nobody cares about anymore. If something happens, like getting stuck, you're on your own. 3 miles under the city in an old drainage tunnel, and it starts raining? How are you getting out before you drown? And it's not just the danger of the place itself. Anyone can get in. People suck. You walk down the wrong corridor, and you might catch a knife in the back from some hobo thinking you're trying to take his spot." I must have looked shaken because Sean sighed and leaned back, softening his tone. "It started last year. I was hunting a geocache hidden in the basement of Fort Beckett. If you grew up around here, you knew about Fort Beckett. It was this crumbling Civil War fort out in the middle of nowhere. Every year, our teachers would haul us out there for a field trip. Half an hour on the bus, 20 minutes trudging through the woods. And then we'd stand outside the fort squinting into the sun, while some ancient guy who looked like he'd fought in the Civil War gave us the same lecture every year about the fort's history. We'd applaud politely, turn around, and slog back the way we came. Despite sitting through that lecture at least 7 times, if someone held a gun to my head and demanded I tell them anything about Fort Beckett, beyond the fact that it was from the Civil War, they'd have to pull the trigger. The whole thing was a blur of wasted afternoons and painfully forced smiles. Honestly, the only highlight of those trips was stopping for lunch at Chuck E. Cheese on the way back. The fort itself, a total wreck. Nobody ever got to go inside, and it looked like it hadn't seen a maintenance crew in decades. It never occurred to me that outside of those forced field trips, the fort just sat there, abandoned and forgotten in the woods. "Fort Beckett has a basement?" Aaron asked, surprised. "Wait, you went inside Fort Beckett? What's in there? I've been dying to know for years." Sean nodded. "To get in, I had to haul myself through a busted window in the back. The first room had all these old cannons and stacks of munitions. Another room was crammed with these dusty framed paintings, just leaned against the wall. There was a barracks area with rows of cots that looked like nobody had touched them since the 1800s. At this point, we were all completely drawn into Sean's story. And he continued. To get to the cache, I had to climb over this pile of debris, like floor to ceiling rubble. Past that, there was a partially collapsed stairwell leading down. I made my way into the basement. It was pitch black. I only had a lighter to see. From what I could tell, the basement used to be a field hospital. There were rusted metal beds with shredded yellow linens, old bedpans, and saws lying around. God knows what else was in there that I couldn't see. I ran my hand along the wall and found the cache behind a loose brick. He leaned back, a slight grin on his face. Afterward, I looked it up and discovered there's this whole urban exploration community out there. It's addictive, man.
That is awesome.
Val laughed, snapping me back to the moment.
You have to take us.
"What?" Colin yelped. "Did you not hear a word he just said? These places are dangerous. You could get attacked, trapped, or arrested." Val rolled her eyes.
Did you not hear a word he just said? Sean just made Fort Beckett sound more interesting than Colonel Cobweb ever did.
"What's the point, though?" Aaron asked. "What do you even get out of it?" Sean shrugged. "Mostly, it's about exploring cool old architecture. But there's also a bragging rights thing. Some spots have bounties for being the first to reach certain locations within that site. Or you can rack up points for completing challenges at different sites." "Are there any near here?" I blurted out before I even realized I was speaking. Val's eyes lit up, and I could feel my pulse quicken. If there was ever a chance to spend more time with her, this was it. Sean pulled out his phone and scrolled through something. His brow furrowed in concentration. After a few minutes, he looked up and said 2 words. St. Agatha's. St. Agatha's Hospital, over in Gunther County, was the stuff of nightmares. Campfire stories painted it as a place of escaped mental patients, gruesome medical experiments, and unspeakable horrors. As kids, we ate those tales up. But as we got older, the truth turned out to be disappointingly mundane. Just an abandoned hospital with a lot of bad rumors and peeling paint. Colin pulled out his own phone and began reading from Wikipedia. St. Agatha's Hospital was a non-profit medical facility in Gunther County. Founded in 1921 by the Sisters of St. Agatha under the leadership of Sister Martha Angela. For over 80 years, it provided both physical and spiritual care to its patients before permanently closing in 2005 due to financial struggles and outdated infrastructure. Summary: St. Agatha's Hospital offered a range of medical services, including general medicine, surgery, pediatrics, and psychiatric care. Operated by the Sisters of St. Agatha, the hospital emphasized holistic healing, combining medical practices with spiritual guidance. The hospital also housed a psychiatric ward that, at one point, treated inmates from the nearby Oak Valley State Prison. This arrangement brought specialized care to a challenging population, but also subjected the hospital to public scrutiny. Despite its controversies, St. Agatha's remained a cornerstone of Gunther County until its closure, after which patients were transferred to modern facilities. Controversies. Lobotomy practices. In the mid-20th century, St. Agatha's gained notoriety for performing lobotomies, particularly on violent criminals from Oak Valley State Prison. While these procedures were accepted medical practice at the time, they later became a focal point of criticism as psychiatric care evolved. The death of Bruce Mad Bull Carver. In 1957, the death of Bruce Mad Bull Carver, a convicted murderer and rape, sparked legal and public outcry. His death, along with others in the prison ward, led to the termination of the hospital's contract with the prison. Death of staff member. In 1958, a nun serving as a nurse fell from the roof of the hospital, resulting in her death. The incident was ruled accidental, though it remains a notable event in the hospital's history. Closure. By 2005, rising costs, outdated facilities, and the demand for advanced technology rendered St. Agatha's unsuitable. The hospital officially closed on July 9, 2005, marking the end of its service to the community. Not nearly as frightening as the rumors would have us believe, Aaron said matter-of-factly. There's a bounty on it, Sean said, his tone oozing intrigue. 5 grand. What? We all shouted at once, the room erupting in disbelief. Sean smirked and read from his phone. Posted Monday. Alright, this is one I've been dying to explore, but haven't been able to get to yet. St. Agatha's Hospital is a mostly intact facility, with stunning Gothic architecture, multiple floors, an old cemetery, and a creepy list of runes posted at the entrance that practically wrote this bounty list for me. Photo of yourself with Mad Bull's grave, 10 points. Photo of yourself dressed in a patient gown, 15 points. Photo of yourself next to Sister Martha Angela's crypt, 20 points. Photo of yourself on the unpatrolled top floor with any outdated medical device, 25 points. Photo of a patient file taken from the administrative office, 30 points. Photo of yourself in a secure room of the psychiatric ward, 40 points. Wearing a straitjacket, 5 points. With the door closed behind you, 10 points. Photo of yourself on the roof of the facility, 75 points. Doing your best falling pose, 15 points. While wearing a nun's habit, 10 points. Photo of yourself lying on a slab in the morgue, 100 points. I've got a cool $5,000 ready for the user with the highest point total by midnight Sunday. Happy haunting. This is sick, Colin said, his expression a mix of horror and fascination. Please tell me you're not actually thinking about doing any of that. Sean sighed. Relax. I've never done a bounty before. I'm not out here playing Ghost Hunters Extreme. I do this to explore, to see cool places most people never get to see.
How many people have submitted photos so far?
Val asked, her tone sharp with curiosity. Sean glanced back at his photo. None. Looks like nobody's been brave enough to try yet.
Wait,
Val said, sitting up straighter.
So you're telling me if we drive out to St. Agatha's, take one group photo at some 60-year-old headstone, and submit it, we could win $5,000?
We're not driving out there, Colin cut in, panic rising in his voice. It's illegal and dangerous, and do I really need another reason? I'm down, Sean said with a shrug. Then, turning to Val, he added, Sounds like a cool place to check out. We go up there, take the photo, and head back. We split take 50-50.
Deal,
Val said enthusiastically, her eyes lighting up. I'm in too. As many times as I've replayed this moment in my head, I've tried to make sense of how it all happened. My thoughts followed in this order. Sean is actually planning to do this? Wait, Val is in? And then there was a brief, disorienting moment where I glanced around, trying to figure out who had spoken next, only to feel the weight of my own voice
settle over me. Wait, I'm in? Was it curiosity? Greed? Jealousy at the thought of Val being alone with Sean? Or just a desperate attempt to get closer to her? Probably all of the above. By the time my brain caught up, I was already committed. "It's almost an hour drive to the middle of goddamn nowhere," Colin said, his voice cracking under the weight of his protest. "That place has been abandoned for over a decade. We don't know what wild animals have taken over, what squatters might be living there, or what other dangers are lurking in the woods. If we get lost or stuck in Gunther County, does anyone even know someone who could help us out there? I've never been that far into the area, and I doubt any of you have either. Stop this insanity before it even starts." "It's not far at all," Aaron said with a smirk. "Look, every scary place has some dramatic story attached to it. It's all hype to keep people out. You're overthinking this, Colin. We zip out there, snap a picture, and we're back in under 2 hours. No big deal. We'll still have plenty of time to work on this bottle when we get back. Worst case scenario, we'll see some raccoons or an old mattress in the woods. Hardly the stuff of nightmares." Colin looked around at us, his voice growing quieter, but no less urgent. "Guys, this warning isn't just private property, stay out because we said so. It's practically screaming, step foot here and you'll meet a fate worse than death. Do you honestly think $5,000 is worth it? Nobody's even attempted this challenge yet. That should tell you everything. There's a reason. This is a bad idea. Please believe me." Val laughed and shook her head. "You don't actually believe that crap, do you? They're just trying to keep kids from trashing the place. It's a scare tactic. The only thing up there is an abandoned building and a bunch of old graves. Are you really going to let some ghost story keep you from coming with us?" Colin's face tightened, his expression somewhere between desperation and disbelief. "None of you should go. If you want an adventure, I can whip up a campaign right now. I've got character sheets and dice in the car. We'll have another drink, and nobody has to risk getting killed, arrested, or eaten alive." I turned to Colin and placed my hand on his shoulder. "Come on, bro. Don't you want $1,000 to fund your board game? Think of it as an adventure. You're always creating stories for us. Different worlds to experience. Well, here's your chance to be part of the story. You don't have to be the DM this time. You get to be the hero." I paused, meeting his eyes. "This is happening, but it won't mean as much without you. You're part of this group. You make it what it is. We need you there." Colin let out a long, heavy sigh, rubbing his temples like he was trying to stave off a headache. "Fine, I'm in. But I want it on record that this is the worst idea we've ever had. And that's saying something. This isn't just stupid. It's reckless, illegal, and borderline suicidal. If any of us dies, I reserve the right to haunt you all for the rest of your lives. But he paused, looking around the group, his voice softening. If you're really doing this, then I'm not letting you go without me. Someone has to make sure you idiots survive. Write the story, Val said playfully, her grin infectious. Let's have an adventure. Colin paused, then adopted his best narrator voice. Our story begins, as many do, in a tavern, a humble meeting place where paths cross, alliances form, and destinies intertwine. Here, among the raucous laughter and clinking mugs, sits our party of adventurers. Some are long-seasoned protectors of the realm. Others have only just joined this unlikely fellowship. We have our fearless barbarian, brimming with raw strength and unmatched courage. He gestured towards Aaron. Our studious wizard, a seeker of arcane truths. He nodded to me. Our experienced ranger, a master of the hunt. Sean earned the next gesture. Our adventurous rogue, as cunning as she is bold. Val raised her eyebrows, clearly amused. And of course, Colin said with a dramatic bow, your humble bard, keeper of tales, and spinner of songs, chronicling your feats for the ages. Straightening up, Colin leaned in, his tone growing more serious. Our ranger has been tasked with a perilous bounty, to track and eliminate a creature of immeasurable wrath. A demonic bull said to threaten the balance of the realm. To reach its lair, we must journey far beyond the safety of our village, venturing into lands where few dare tread. We will cross the treacherous hills of DuPont, skirt the forbidden caves of Alport, brave the jagged peaks of the mountains of Polk, and descend through the haunting valley of Oak. At last, deep within the overgrown woods of Dwyer, we will find the solemn citadel, an ancient fortress long abandoned, its stones cloaked in shadow and silence. There, within its crumbling halls and forgotten catacombs, lies the gate that binds the demonic bull to this world. Together, we must seal it once and for all. For our courage, the reward will be great. But beware, countless dangers beyond our reckoning lie in wait. Steel your hearts, for the path ahead is fraught with peril. The group burst into laughter, and Val clapped her hands, grinning. Oh my god, that was amazing! As we piled into Sean's car, spirits high and inhibitions low, I couldn't help but feel a spark of excitement. Val slid into the back seat between Colin and me, her energy infectious. Aaron jumped into the front with Sean, who fired up the engine. The night stretched ahead of us, full of possibility. Looking back, I realize how foolish we all were. Colin was the only one with an ounce of sense, but none of us could see it. We should have listened to him. I wish to God that we had.